Hey, my friends, how's it going? It's Ultimus. It has been way more than a hot minute. It's been quite a while, actually, but with Blizzcon around the corner and a suspected World of Warcraft expansion announcement, decided to dust off the old microphone, the camcorder, and drop a video for you guys. So, buddy of mine and I scored last-minute tickets to Blizzcon, so we're very, very excited to be going. Looking forward to all of the juicy news and things there. But yeah, I wanted to record a video and go over at least 7 things that I would like to see going forward with World of Warcraft. I think it's safe to assume we're going to get a World of Warcraft expansion announcement. Obviously, nothing's guaranteed, but there's been a whole lot of leaks. There's been a whole lot of data mining and things like that have been going on. So people are pretty convinced of goings-ons, and so I just think it would be a very disappointing BlizzCon to not have a World of Warcraft announcement at this time, considering we're about due for one, considering how they usually do, announcements with patches and expansions. So I'm going to try my best to keep this as short as possible. I've already recorded this once, and it was 20 minutes long, so I'm going to try to keep it shorter than that. So we're just going to call that a trial run. So the first thing I'm looking at that I would love to see back are talent trees. I miss having talent trees. I like them a lot when we got the talent columns, rows, whatever you want to call them. Back in, I believe it was Mr. Pandaria for the first time. I was not excited about it, but I was willing to give it a try, like I am with most things. There's a lot of things that I am like, I don't think I like that, but I'll let it play out, see how it goes. And now that we are 3-4 expansions removed from Mr. Pandaria, I can safely say that I miss talent trees, especially having Classic as a side-by-side comparison. I think one of the reasons we stopped seeing talents for a while was the levels got to be too high, and there's just a lot of talents to balance and manage, I would imagine. I don't know if this is true or confirmed or not. This is just me speculating. But now that we're looking at what potentially is a level squish coming our way, since I think a lot of us are pretty aware of that little notification, whatever it was that Blizzard sent out saying, hey, are you aware that World of Warcraft will be dealing with a level squish soon? So a lot of us are expecting one probably this expansion. How big of a level squish that is going to be, who knows? Are they going to reset it all the way back to 60, 70, 80, 90? I couldn't tell you. But I think with that on the horizon and the potential of a level squish, having a full-on talent tree sounds like it'd be a whole lot more manageable, and it's just a lot more enjoyable comparative to like if these choices were more customizable and open and didn't feel as funky and wonky, I would be fine with it. But the fact that I'm looking at a talent row like this, for example, I used the 75 tier as my poster child for this. To me, Cleave feels like an iconic core arms ability, and it just feels weird making me choose it between that or Warbreaker, because I don't think there's ever been a single situation in which I've thought to myself, Cleave would be a better choice than applying my Colossus Smash debuff to everything. There's a clear-cut winner, and especially in rows with passives and active abilities, where the passives are just clearly better, but the active skill sounds more fun. It's just not ideal. Because most players are, I believe, looking for the optimal talents, and they're looking for the optimal setup because they want to do well in the game. And so stuff like this just doesn't feel fantastic. If it was better divvied up and the choices didn't feel like if the choices didn't feel as bad as they do, I think it'd be fine. But overall, and even with talent trees though, getting a talent to spend every other level, however they want to do it, is exciting. It's something to look forward to, even if you're spending it in an arbitrary 1% crit talent that you're going to take anyways, no matter what. It's still something for leveling, and I think it's a lot more enjoyable. So I would like to see talent trees come back, especially with what we believe to be an imminent level squish. With Ian Hazakostas coming out speaking for the WoW team and saying they believe that the ability prune has gone too far, So what that means and what we'll see coming up, who knows? It sounds promising to me, and I'm really hoping that we'll see something along those lines come back to WoW. The next thing that I would like to see added into the next World of Warcraft expansion going forward would be less emphasis on specs, more so on classes. I miss just having certain abilities across all my warrior specs, with a couple here and there being, iconic to whatever spec. Like obviously, Mortal Strike has always been and will likely always be an arms warrior ability. Cool. Bloodthirst will always be a Fury Warrior ability. Cool. But looking at mages, for example, and I think mages are the best example for this, just because they're probably one of the more flashy specs and classes to play in the game, where there's stuff popping off and you're seeing stuff falling from the sky, and there's always things going on, and there's a lot of cool colors going on, and the animations for abilities are obviously very iconic to what's being thrown around. Are you hitting someone with an arcane blast or a pyroblast, or you're throwing a giant icicle at them? I would love to see some melding of all of that to where you're a mage, and you can cast frost, fire, and arcane spells across the board. Obviously, your better spells are going to be your frost spells and things like that, especially your big skills. But I think having more flavor like that, just to me, is more enjoyable. And I feel like a lot of players feel the same. I could be wrong though, but to me, I think that would be a lot more enjoyable for the game as a whole. Talking more about classes, I would love to see things like Single-Minded Fury and Two-Handed Frost come back for things like warriors and Death Knights. I'm not really sure if there's anything like that across the board for other classes. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not gonna lie. I'm most familiar with warrior, so I'm just going off warrior here, and Death Knight as well, but mostly warrior. Even in like during say Cataclysm, for example, there was a clear-cut winner on what was better, Single-Minded Fury or Titan's Grip. But it was a lot of fun to play Single-Minded Fury, and it was cool. And I think giving players those kind of options when it comes to their specs and stuff like that, and as far as like customization, I think that makes a spec more impactful, rather than just focusing on you're a frost mage, so you do lots of frosty things. Obviously, that's what you're going to do best, but it doesn't make sense to me to block you out of other stuff completely. And so, in regards to warriors, I would like to see Single-Minded Fury come back. It feels iconic and kind of classic. I was trying to avoid using that example, but I guess here we are. It's just a classic thing. It's fun aesthetically. It looks cool as well. Obviously, there will be a clear-cut winner when it comes to DPS charts and what's more effective. I get that. It's an MMO. It's a game. There's always going to be something that comes out on top. But I think just giving players more options like that is always fun. Again, it's the same thing with Death Knights. Two-handed, Death Knight spec, or dual wield. It's just, especially with where loot is right now. Everything's personal loot, right? So the ability to ninja loot anybody's gear just so you can play the fun spec that you want, even if it's not optimal, is basically non-existent. I feel like there's no reason that we can't make this work. So I would just like to see it back. If anything else, just for fun flavor. Because why the heck not? Ooh, that was loud. I might have to cut that out. Yawns are sneaking up on me. It's been a long day. I would love to see, and this is more in regards to lore, so this is number 4. I would love to see less moral ambiguity in the game as far as storytelling. I miss having a big bad villain that's just evil. He wants to kill y'all. He can't be reasoned with. He can't be persuaded. He has no underlying, hidden, misunderstood, doing it for the greater good bit behind him. He's evil. And I miss that, and that's, I think, a lot of what I enjoyed about Legion. Was Sargeras and his underlings could not be bought, could not be reasoned with. They were just out to destroy more or less what they came in contact with. They were out to conquer worlds and destroy Azeroth. Now, of course, Sargeras isn't a perfect example either, because everything he was doing again was because he thought was for the greater good of the universe, because he understands the Void, he understands the Void Lords and the old gods, and he knows that they are a blight on the universe and they must be snuffed out. And so his reasoning was that in order to get rid of them, you must destroy the planet, all that stuff like that. That's a really TLDR version of it. So even Sargeras and the Legion isn't perfect, but there was so much going on in Legion lore wise that felt imminent. It seems like every time I turned around, every new patch we got, someone else was dying. that was intense, and I enjoy stuff like that in an RPG. I miss having just an evil to vanquish, rather than trying to figure out, are they right, are they wrong, are they good, are they bad. I every once in a while I don't mind it. Every once in a while I think it's good storytelling, but it's like every time we turn around, it's like, maybe they're just misunderstood. I don't know. To me, it just gets old, and it's not motivating. It's not driving. There's no sense of dread. There's no sense of imminence behind it, and I miss that. So I would like to see that come back to World of Warcraft. I would also, now moving on to number 5, I would love to see professions be meaningful and impactful again. At the very least, I would love to see them be a decent source for gold making. I've been messing around with professions for the past couple days in WoW. I'm getting kind of a weird lull for content in WoW right now, where it's like, I'll just make some gold. I don't mind it. It's kind of fun. But I was noticing that I'm going back and I'm making stuff from expansions past to make gold. And I understand that there's always going to be some value in that, simply because it's not as frequent on the market anymore, and so there's a little bit of a supply and demand issue there. So I don't have a problem with that as a whole, but I think the fact that I'm not really doing or selling anything from BFA to make gold, unless I'm just doing it wrong, feels weird to me. I miss professions having a point. Like, even if you allowed. Well, I'll just come out and say I miss blacksmiths being able to add sockets to their gear and to their buddies' gear. It was cool. It was a lot of fun. It was cool. And even if they wanted to go the route of making it to where, there was, some somewhat decent, rare or expensive materials attached to it, I'm okay with that too. I think it would be really good for the game. I think it'd be a lot of fun. Give you a reason to go out there and farm up that blacksmithing, so you could do that to your plate. And of course, leather could do, mail and leather armor. Tailoring could do cloth armor, things like that. Hell, they could even do something to where, you could add a couple item levels to a piece of gear, for what would be imagining to be quite rare and quite expensive materials and things like that. I think that would be a lot more enjoyable for players. And again, it would put a sense of community back into it, into the game, that is hard to come by nowadays. And I think that would overall be better than a lot of the stuff we have right now with professions and even, gear and Titan Forging and War Forging and things like that. Because I don't even necessarily think Titan Forging and War Forging on their own are bad systems, but the implementation of them now has players pretty frustrated with this. So something like that tied in with professions. And I think you could have a really, really good winning system here. 6th, I would love to see damage change, and what I mean by that is damage needs to matter outside of cooldowns. Obviously, cooldowns need to be impactful. They need to be important. You need to feel like you're doing something really, really cool when you pop an offensive or defensive cooldown. When I pop Avatar, or when I'm playing Fury, if I pop Battle Cry, that needs to do cool stuff. Stuff needs to take a lot of damage and needs to die when all that's going on. Or else, what's the point? With big defensive cooldowns, they've got to be able to be impactful and be cool and be able to pull off really cool plays and things like that, or saves, whether it's in arenas or raids or stuff like that, BGs or world PvP or dungeons and things like that. It's got to be impactful. But I was noticing this a lot more leveling my elemental shaman recently, in that I just felt like nothing was happening outside of flame shock, earth shock, and the occasional lava burst. Everything else just kind of hits like a wet noodle. It just doesn't feel like there's a point to it, aside from just building resources and then dumping, and then building resources and then dumping. It just feels too weird to me. I'm not a big fan of it. I feel like warriors don't have it as bad, especially with arms, because you got your Colossus Smash debuff and stuff like that, and you can do some decent damage in that window as well. But even so, that's only every 45 seconds, and I'm not going to go into all that. But there needs to be damage needs to matter outside of just cooldowns, and I think this might be more specifically a PvP problem as well too. But PvP needs to be more than just trading cooldowns. I get it that it's a little bit of a chess game when it comes to trading cooldowns, which I don't mind that entirely. I think that can be good for the game, but like, you've got to be able to kill people outside cooldowns too. Like, just to me, like, it seems silly that the only time you're really going to be killing anybody is when cooldowns are spent, whether it's because there's no defensives left to play or because your offensives caught them off guard. I feel it feels weird that I cannot really kill anybody outside of cooldowns. So I would love to see damage matter a little bit more outside of cooldowns. Maybe adjust cooldowns to where they're not as powerful, or they're powerful in a different niche way. I don't know. I'm not a game designer. Just my thoughts from playing. I'm trying to think if there's anything else on top of that I'd like to throw out there before we get way too long. This is going to be 20 minutes again. Gosh darn it. Last but not least, less raid difficulties. I don't think we need 4 tiers of raid difficulty. It just feels cumbersome and kind of pointless. It creates the issue of power creep a little bit too much as well. Bump it down to 2 or 3. I don't know if we'll ever see LFR go bye-bye, but I think it should. And this is coming from someone who I'm the target audience for LFR. I play a couple hours every night. Sometimes not every night. Sometimes I don't get on for a day or two. And so LFR is literally geared and designed for people like me. But I wouldn't be bummed out if it went, the way of the dodo bird. Because normal is not that difficult to get into. Normal is not that difficult to do. And I think if it is the lowest tier for people to get into, I think you would see people rising to the challenge, and I think you'd see people being like, well, this is how I get the gear, so this is what we're going to do. Especially with the fact that you can play with people from all across servers now. There's almost no reason to have LFR. So I personally think LFR should go the way of the water buffalo. So that would be my thing. And whether that bumps it down to just 2 or 3 raid tiers of difficulty, I don't know. But I think having 4 is just excessive and cumbersome, and there's just no point to it. I think we should be looking at only a couple tiers of raid difficulty. I think that would overall be better for the game. So I guess a quick TLDR of it. I'd love to see talent trees come back. I'd love to see less emphasis on specs and more emphasis on classes as a whole. I'd love to see more customization options in line with that as far as equipment goes, like say for Warriors and Death Knights. I don't know how that would translate to other classes because I'm most familiar with Warriors and Death Knights, but take that as you will. I would love to see less moral ambiguity when it comes to storytelling and villains in the game. Professions need to matter again. They need to be worth playing and leveling and dumping time and resources into. I would love to see damage adjusted to where it matters outside cooldowns, and cooldowns readjusted to where it's not simply an exchange of cooldowns when it comes to PvP. I understand PvP and PvE are different in those situations, but even then, I just think the damage you should be doing outside of cooldown should mean something. And then of course, lastly, I think we should be reducing the amount of raid difficulties. So that's that. But that's all I got for that. I'm excited for BlizzCon. I'm excited to see what's coming out of the convention this weekend. Obviously, most excited for World of Warcraft. Looking forward to what we get from Diablo. Looking forward to what we see from Heroes of the Storm, since we recently had Deathwing announced as a hero for that game. That's got me excited. And overall, I think it's going to be an enjoyable experience, especially because I get to go with my best friends and meet up with some other really, really good friends there. So it'll be a good time. But let me know down in the comment section below what you think we'll see from the WoW expansion announcement. What kind of systems or things different would you like to see? And all that nonsense. I'm not going to ask you to bother to subscribe or anything like that, because I can't ask you to care, considering who knows when I'll upload again. But it is what it is. Hey, thank you guys so much for watching. Appreciate you. And as always, I'll catch you next time.